You know, it's a pleasure and honor for me to be here tonight. I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak to such a distinguished group. And I know there's no such thing as an ex-Marine. I understand Semper Fi, always once a Marine, always a Marine. But anyway, I told him about tonight that I was going to be speaking, and what an honor it was. And he, instead of saying congratulations or anything like that, what he told me was, he goes, well, you know why Veterans Day, the holiday, is on November 11th, don't you? I go, yeah, I'm a student of history. That's one of my majors in college. And I said, yeah, I know why. It was the day that the armistice was signed, ending World War I. He goes, no. That's not it. The Marine Corps birthday is on November 10th, so it's a holiday on November 11th, so we can recover from our birthday party. Well, and I understand last year's speaker, he was born in Australia, and he said, I'm Australian by birth, an American by choice, and a Marine by the grace of God. I gotta tell you, I can't top that. That's pretty darn good. What do you say about an organization that every little boy in this country wants to grow up and become? I was no different. I wanted to be a Marine Corps when I was a little boy. I remember watching John Wayne in the Sands of Iwo Jima, and I remember watching the documentary, We Serve Our Time in Hell, about the war in the Pacific. And I knew at that time I wanted to be a Marine. Well, then I got a little older, and I had two dreams at that time. One was to go to West Point, and the other one was still to become a Marine. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do either one. But then I went off to college, and no, it wasn't West Point. But that little boy's dream was still there. It didn't quite die. Sometime around my sophomore year, a buddy of mine came to me and said, hey, the Marine Corps has this program for college students that if you go down and take a test, you can become a Marine Corps fighter pilot. I said, awesome, that's great. I found out about it. I jumped up, I ran down, took the test, and there's only one problem. Who knew? Really, who knew that you needed to know something about physics or something about math, to fly jet fighters? I didn't. Well, let's just say I didn't score very well on the test. And after looking at my score, I'm sure they said something like, with your skills and attitude or attributes and talents, I think you ought to consider a career in sheep herding or join the Army. So I did. I joined the Army National Guard about 5 months later. So again, what do you say about an organization that actually lives up to its TV commercials and its hype? The few, the proud, the Marines. What do you say? You say congratulations on joining an elite branch of the military. Only 0.00006% of the population can claim to be or ever have been a Marine. I took my family to vacation in New York City and Washington, D.C. And during the summer, the silent drill team performs at the Iwo Jima Memorial. So, of course, as part of that vacation, we went to see him perform. And for those of you who have been out to Washington, it wasn't just a little drizzle, it was pouring rain. Well, I got up, I was not going to get up and give up my seat or my place in that area. Like Marines, I established a beachhead, and I was going to stay there, and I was going to protect my little corner. And I don't know why, because everybody else was running for cover to get out of the rain and under the trees, so there really was nothing else to protect. Well, the rain finally stopped, and the commanding officer of the 8th and I, Paris, must have a direct line to the Almighty, because right on cue, the rain stopped, and the silent drill team marched out from behind the Iwo Jima Memorial. And I have to tell you, as soon as I saw them enter the field from behind that memorial, every hair on my body stood at attention. I was so overcome with pride and goosebumps. It reminded me of why, when I was a little boy, my dream was to become a Marine. So what can you say about the tradition in the Marine Corps? Law enforcement and Marines have a lot in common. Specifically, the office of the sheriff and the Marine Corps. I'm going to compare those. Sheriffs carry on many, many old traditions, much like the Marines do. In 1871, King Alfred the Great made the sheriffs the chief law enforcement official of the county. So they're in charge of, capturing criminals and running the law enforcement. In 1200s, the sheriff became responsible to run the county jail. They also, a few years later, became responsible to run what they call the workhouses. We still do that today. We still run the county jail from the 1200s, but now we have work release facilities. We have a lot more traditions, much like you all do, but I'm not going to get into them for the sake of time. But I have to tell you, everything the Marine Corps does just screams of tradition. I mean, what I saw here tonight is just incredible. The uniform. The dress blues reflect the proud legacy of the Marines who have served for 2 centuries. Everything from the button, which bears the eagle and anchor, has been on the uniform since 1804. It's the oldest military insignia still in use. And I'm sure I'm not telling you anything, but this is fascinating to me. The blood stripe, which today serves at the honor and memories of the fallen officer or the fallen comrades that have been part of the uniform since 1849. And the collar reflects the original Marine uniform of the American Revolution, which protected the Marines from sword blows. And then speaking of swords, the swords the Marines carry are the oldest weapons still in use by American services. And the proud tradition of NCOs have restored the 1858 cavalry sword in recognition of their leadership in combat, their virtue and tradition. Only the Marine Corps awards such recognition in non-coms. There's so many other proud traditions that you guys have that I'm just in envy of. The Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, the Marine Corps motto, Semper Fi. Being the first to fight. Your oath that you take, and that's, I'll forget, one of the most important reasons, most important traditions, the birthday party tonight, and having a good time. Leadership is exemplified in all levels of the Marine Corps, and all levels know their mission. There's no confusion in this matter. Leadership is teaching everyone the mission, and then making sure everyone has a clear vision of what their responsibility is. The Marines' mission is to fight when needed, and everyone knows their responsibility. It doesn't matter if you're a cook, a truck driver, or an MP. Your responsibility is to fight, and you're a rifleman. And not all other services recognize this or have that same mindset. You may not realize this, but your leadership style is emulated by other government entities in the private sector. As sheriff, I've tried hard to instill the same leadership principles of that of the Marine Corps. Mission, responsibility, accountability, and teaching everyone else to know the job of the person above them. I feel the best way to judge respect is to see what other people are saying about you. The Marine Corps has so much respect from the other services, from presidents, from private citizens, and even the enemy. And so I just have a couple of examples of what people were saying about you guys. I have just returned from visiting the Marines at the front. There is no finer fighting organization in the world. General Douglas MacArthur. The safest place in Korea was behind a platoon of Marines. Lord, how they could fight. And that's from Major General Frank Lowe of the United States Army. Marines, I say, are 2 breeds, Rottweilers or Dobermans, because Marines come in 2 varieties. Big and mean, or skinny and mean. They're aggressive on the attack and tenacious on defense. They got really short hair and they always go for the throat. Rear Admiral J. Stark of the United States Navy. President Ronald Reagan in 1985 said, "Some people spend an entire lifetime wondering if they made a difference in the world, but Marines don't have that problem." Former First Lady of the United States. Marines I've seen around the world have the cleanest bodies, the filthiest minds, the highest morale, the lowest morals of any group of animals I've ever seen. Thank God for the United States Marine Corps. From the enemy, short and sweet, panic sweeps my men when they face the American Marines. And that was from a captured North Korean major. And this one's kind of my favorite. I like this one a lot. They told us to open the embassy or we're going to blow you away. And then they looked up and saw the Marines on the roof with those really big guns. And they said in Somali, "Agaliahau," which means, "Excuse me, didn't mean it, my mistake." That's from Karen Aguilar of the U.S. Embassy. The Marine Corps gets respect, not because you simply demand it, not because you ask for it, not because you want it, but because you've earned it. You've earned it on the battlefields of every war and every conflict this great country has ever fought. What can you say about sacrifice and the Marine Corps? I mentioned earlier there's a lot of similarities between the Marines and law enforcement. Recently I was in Washington, D.C., and the first thing I did was I went to the Law Enforcement Memorial, where there are over 19,000 deputies and officers listed on the wall. It made me think of their sacrifice to their agency, to their community, and to this great country as well. And as you know, probably know, we have 2 deputies from the Weld County Sheriff's Office on that wall, Earl Butcher and Sam Brownlee, who paid the ultimate price. For the most part, the Pacific was left up to Marines to fight it out against a determined, hardened, brutal, and fortified enemy. They fought in places called Wake Island, Guadalcanal, New Guinea, Tarawa, Guam, Leyte Gulf, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. On one of the walls, there's a quote by Walter Lord about the Battle of Midway, which most people don't realize, but the Battle of Midway, the Marines played a vital role. This is what he had to say. They had no right to win, yet they did. And in doing so, they changed the course of the war. Even against the greatest of odds, there is something in the human spirit, a magic blend of skill, faith, and valor that can lift men from certain defeat to incredible victory. I wear this wristband, and it says, "Heroes live forever." And it's a black band with a little blue stripe around it, or in the middle. And it represents the thin blue line of peace officers that peace officers stand in every day. It's what separates a peaceful society from anarchy. But I have to tell you, I look out here tonight, and it also applies to you, every single Marine that wore the uniform. You who stood against fascism, and you who stood against communism, and you who stood against terrorism. The Marine Corps is that thin blue line that separates freedom from tyranny. What can you say about Marine Corps courage that hasn't already been said? The Warrior Culture of the U.S. Marines, written by Myron Sucky, said courage is honor in action. It's the moral strength and the mental discipline to take a stand in spite of adverse consequences. There is no doubt in my mind that every Marine lives up to that standard, especially the ones that have won the Medal of Honor. There have been 297 Marines who have received the country's highest award since its inception in the Civil War. From the very first Marine to the latest. The very first, Corporal John Mackey, who on May 15, 1862 was on board the USS Salina. As heavy enemy shell fire raked the deck of the ship, killing many on board, Corporal Mackey fearlessly maintained his musket fire against the rifle pits along the shore. Corporal Mackey was ordered to fill vacancies at other gun pits caused by men who were wounded and killed in action. And the citation read for Corporal Mackey that he manned his weapons with skill and courage. The last Marine, I think they mentioned it on the video we saw, was Corporal Dakota Meyer, who on September 8, 2009 was serving in the Kunar province of Afghanistan. A contingent of Marines, American soldiers, Afghani soldiers, and Afghani border police were attempting to make contact with a village leader in the province. The contingent was broken into 4 elements: an observation post, a quick reaction force, a dismounted patrol, and a security element. The security element was positioned at the objective rally point, or ORP. Corporal Meyer was assigned to the security unit at the objective rallying point, along with Staff Sergeant Juan Rodriguez Chavez. The embedded training team and other elements of the joint operation dismounted their vehicles, and they left them with Meyer and Chavez. Corporal Meyer watched the patrol making their way to the village. As they approached, the lights in the village went out, and the patrol was ambushed by more than 50 insurgents in a well-fortified position. The American and Afghani forces took cover, returned fire, and made multiple attempts to call for artillery and air support. Meyer was instructed to remain at his post, even as the forward element was pinned down and encircled by enemy fire. Casualties mounted in joint operations remained pinned down without air support or any support for 2 hours. Meyer requested permission to enter the kill zone and was denied 4 times. 4 times he asked to enter the kill zone. Well, after the 4th denial, he took it upon himself to leave his relatively safe location at the ORP. He mounted a gun truck with Chavez as the driver. Meyer and Rodriguez Chavez drove the kilometer to the kill zone and entered into the heaviest zone of fire without the aid of supporting arms in order to aid American wounded soldiers and Marines and Afghan forces. Those 2 Marines now became the focus of enemy fire, consisting of a barrage of mortars, RPGs, machine gun, and small arms fire. And without hesitation, Meyer and Chavez evacuated wounded, provided first aid, and recovered bodies of the joint operation, taking them back to the casualty collection point. There they ventured back into the kill zone 4 more times, still in search of the forward element. Upon re-entry, Rodriguez Chavez warned Meyer they may get stuck in rough terrain ahead. In spite of the risk, Meyer remained steadfast, remarking, and I guess we'll die with them. The two Marines continued their forward movement and took on more enemy fire. And due to an artillery malfunction, they were forced to return to the ORP to swap vehicles for a working heavy machine gun. On the way back, they encountered more wounded and retrieved them and transported them back to safety. About this point, Corporal Meyer was wounded by an RPG. Still in search of the forward unit, Meyer led a fifth and final charge back into the kill zone. At this time, air support finally entered the fight. A pair of rescuemen on a helicopter informed Meyer, spotting what appeared to be 4 bodies. Meyer dismounted the Humvee and ran towards those 4 bodies. Others were running towards the bodies to assist, but Meyer was out in front, drawing a hot volume of enemy fire, disregarding continuing small arms, RPG, mortars, and machine gun fire, until he reached the 4 lifeless bodies of the missing Marine advisors. Moving out of the ditch, across the danger zone, he transported the bodies with the assistance of 2 others. During the course of the 6-hour fight, without regard to his own personal safety, Meyer entered the kill zone 5 times, ultimately saved the lives of 13 U.S. Marines and soldiers, in addition to 23 Afghan soldiers. Meyer personally killed at least 8 Taliban insurgents. He did all this while providing cover for his team so that they could fight their way out and escape certain death. Really, what could I say about Marine Corps courage? Absolutely nothing. I think he said it all. In closing, I'd like to read a quote from an anonymous Canadian citizen that I think best describes Marines, and certainly probably all of you here tonight. Marines are about the most peculiar breed of human beings I've ever witnessed. They treat their service as if it were some kind of cult, plastering their emblem on almost everything they own, making themselves up to look like insane fanatics, worshipping their commandant almost as if he was a god, and making weird animal noises like the band of savages. They'll fight like rabid dogs at the drop of a hat, just for the sake of a little action. And they are the cockiest SOBs I've ever known. Most have the foulest mouths and drink well beyond a man's normal limits. But their high spirits and sense of brotherhood set them apart. And generally speaking, of the United States Marines I've come in contact with, they are the most professional soldiers and the finest men I've ever had the pleasure to meet. Like I said, I'm sure that applies to every single one of you in here. So I want to thank you for having me tonight and making the dream of a little boy who wanted to grow up to be a Marine just a little bit closer. God bless the United States Marine Corps. God bless the United States of America. And good night, Chesty, wherever you are.